those of you who are just joining us, welcome to week 7 of 10 questions. And of course, the question tonight is, thank you. Not only do I want to thank you all for being here, I also want to thank the Centennial Committee who have supported this project this year. Also the School of the Arts and Architecture and World Arts and Cultures Dance. And I just want to call out a few names to thank. Mark, Ginger, Arsenio, Marcia, Dan, and Jennifer, Kylie, Louise, and Anne-Marie. Thank you. And lastly, I want to acknowledge that as a public land-grant institution, we recognize the Gabrielino Tongva people who were the original caretakers of this land, and we are grateful to be visitors in this place. So I want to just, before we move forward with the evening, I just want to acknowledge the creativity of the posters that have been at our, there it is, right there, with us all these weeks. And particularly the main one is this image of the ceremonial shell of the Gabrielino Tongva people, and also the original groundbreaking of UCLA held within the shell. And I should also say that Design by Relative, the group of artists who made this design, all of those images come from our archive, our UCLA library archive. So just again, you know, so many opportunities here as we move through 10 questions to think about this question of creativity. This is a complicated image, but I think that it holds this groundbreaking that was the beginning of UCLA. It also leaves us to ponder the frictions and violences of the past and to, again, with humility, acknowledge the land in which we inhabit our community here at UCLA. So now I'm going to move forward, but we'll keep that there. I think that over the last 7 weeks, we students, we have learned that it's not possible to answer any of these questions. So I think we quickly got over that. There's not going to be answers, certainly not easy answers. But I do hope that the effort to slip beneath the surface of an idea, to note the ways in which our different fields of inquiry cause us to answer a question, and the challenge we're given to hold these very different perspectives together, I hope that they've yielded surprises for you. Last week, we were addressing the question, what is nature? And there were some very expansive ideas that were discussed, that were continued in your forum conversations and in your section discussions, and in the art that you made. And some of the ideas that have stayed with me were the idea that the body itself is an entire biosphere, that animals are nature, and that therefore humans are part of nature. And we also got to contemplate genetic design and the potentials that are with us with these new technologies of genetic design, and also the ethical concerns around routing out illness in favor of a more perfect body, but also routing out diversity by doing that, and actually starting to think about a new eugenics that we need to address as we try to, as we are part of a world that is shaping humanity through our new genetic technologies. So again, that was related to nature. And the city as part of the domain of nature, and that the things that people make as part of nature. All of this was on the table, including, and I have to credit some of these conversations that happen online in your forums. I have to read my notes here. The management of contradictions when images that project pristine and unsullied natural environments require the viewer to forget or not know that beyond the frame, out of sight, an entire apparatus of control guards the illusion. The art that I saw on Friday, and I'm not referring to that right now, made in response to the question, what is nature, clearly engaged the complexity of ideas. And I was very moved by the work that you made. Just a shout out to you all. This week, let's turn to questions and not answers. In the past, you students have provided us with answers, just quick answers to the questions that we've been addressing, and I've acknowledged them in my introduction. This week, however, you've prepared questions for the panelists, indeed for all of us in this room, and I will refer directly to your questions later this evening. Because sometimes the questions we ask are far more important than the answers. A question is in itself a point of view, and it speaks about the person who asks it. I'm kind of, trying to beef up the question approach to this course. So a few more thoughts about questions. They locate us in our lives and with one another. They tell us what we want to know, and indeed sometimes feel the need to know. Questions open up opportunities for us to be together. Tonight, I'd like to celebrate questions as the catalyst of creativity. Our remarkable guests tonight will have the opportunity to move not only from their depth of knowledge, but also between one another as they ask each other questions and share their thoughts on creativity. It reminds me what Sylvan Oswald told us a few weeks ago about being able to move between knowing and not knowing gracefully and not feeling like knowing is the thing we need to have or to be all the time. Not knowing is an incredibly dignified and graceful place to be. Not knowing is the springboard to new ideas. So, and then why ask what is creativity? Well, I think that's probably pretty evident. We all want to think about creativity. But I wanted to just throw a thought out that creativity is about seeing possibility within what appears to be a fixed system. And thinking about 10 questions, it attempts to ask questions about education and interdisciplinarity in a way that unfixes our familiar patterns of learning. I fully admit it's not a perfect object. It is, however, an exercise in creativity. And I would say, judging by the remarkable people who join us in this room, generosity. Generosity and creativity, I think, are inextricably intertwined. In contrast, whether in art making or in character assessments, frameworks like good or bad, right or wrong, can become the enemy of creativity. They foreclose complexity and are often used to justify a viewpoint, which may be an important viewpoint, but it doesn't allow that viewpoint to shift, change, grow, deepen, and so on. And there are big challenges before us, as we well know, and we will be working on these together, collaborating to form new knowledge, seeing possibility, creativity, seeing possibility where others do not, in order to forge a way forward. So creativity is part of our way forward. Speaking of forging a way forward, I'd like to invite you to join me in welcoming our remarkable guest this evening. Come on out if you don't mind. Andrea Ghez, Kyle Abraham, and Evan Sullivan. Well, you have to come for a second, Kyle. No? Come on out for 1 sec. Is that okay?
Sure, 1 second.
Okay. He's getting dressed back there. Okay, so I just, I would just like to take a moment to tell you a little bit about these remarkable people. And I'll start with Andrea. Andrea joined the faculty in the Department of Physics and Astronomy at UCLA in 1994. Thank you. Professor Ghez is a world-leading expert in observational astrophysics and has used the Keck telescopes to suggest the existence of a supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy with a mass 4 million times that of our sun. She is currently using and developing high spatial resolution imaging techniques to study star formation and investigate the proposed massive black hole in the center of our galaxy. She was the first woman to receive the Crawford Prize and has received the MacArthur Fellowship and has been elected to the National Academy of Sciences and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. And I feel grateful to her being here because she's also my friend. Evan Sullivan is an interface UX designer and a UCLA philosophy alumnus. He currently works in connected products at Honda Motor Corporation, where he leads an international team of developers and designers in exploring new ways of interacting with transportation. His work springs directly from his philosophy training rooted in first principles thinking, as well as his own longtime status as a car nerd. Evan also created Sunrisk, a top-rated iOS and the Apple Watch app, which helps users stay safe in the sun by identifying the risk of sunburn through UV data. I would say we're talking creativity here. All right, welcome, Evan. And Kyle Abraham is a choreographer, colleague, and friend, and director of Abraham in Motion Dance Company. He joined our faculty here in World Arts and Cultures Dance in 2016. Born into hip-hop culture in the late 1970s and grounded in a broad artistic upbringing, his choreography draws on social politics and personal history to create original work. Abraham's honors are numerous and include the Doris Duke Artist Award, the MacArthur Fellowship, a USA Ford Fellowship, a Jacob's Pillow Dance Award, a Bessie Award for Outstanding Performance in Dance, and that's like an Oscar in New York City, and a Princess Grace Award. Welcome, Kyle. So, by previous agreement, we have an order. Andrea is going to start us off. Kyle's going to continue to warm up. And Evan and I will sit down here and share in the program. Okay. You got your clicker?
I got my clicker.
Okay, great.
Okay. So, do I click? Okay, so let's start. What is creativity? So one might say it's the capacity to create new ideas. Now, as an astrophysicist, my view on this will be it's the ability to create new understanding of how the universe works. And when I think about creativity, I think of change in our knowledge, and change that's not incremental. In other words, a small building or advancement on the current state of knowledge, but rather one that is transformative, one that fundamentally changes our understanding of what's at play. When I talk to my graduate students about the question of creativity, because that is what we are trying to create in our students, is the ability to create new knowledge, I always come to, this is fundamentally about the ability to ask the right question. So Vic's introduction to this revisit of your class is just so appropriate. Because we're taught in classes so often how to answer the questions that are posed to us. But in fact, the advancement of knowledge through creative processes is really about asking the right questions. And I often think of this in a very visual way. I feel like it's a process of walking around the boundaries of our knowledge, knocking on those walls, asking, where is it weak? how do we know what we know? What is that house of cards that we've constructed to frame what we know that might be weak? And what is our ability to advance it, either from an intellectual point or from the point of view of tools? So I come at this very much from the point of view of tools. How can new tools give us a different viewpoint? So I'd say actually my message is fourfold today in terms of creativity. The ability for new tools to give us a different viewpoint and push our knowledge forward, to create a different point of view. The need in this to take risks, the willingness to go against the grain and to understand when that's a valuable risk to take, and the ability to sustain, I would say, that state of uncomfort, the discomfort with maybe not knowing, with perhaps contradicting the status quo. Yeah, I think those are the two biggies on that front. The ability to constantly expose ourselves to new ideas, because I think so much of creativity comes from thinking about one area and actually seeing the connection to another area. So in fact, our ability to sustain the state of creativity relies on us not constantly doing the same thing, or perhaps not constantly working on what we call work. Maybe going and seeing something that seems outside the box that allows us to draw those connections. And then last but not least is the ability to take some space, some quiet space. And I think in today's world where we're constantly multitasking, the idea of just doing one thing, never buying, just sitting with the state of not knowing, and maybe fiddling with the things that we do know, or the way I visualize this when I think of the creative process of putting the puzzle pieces together in different ways. So that last piece is the necessity to take time alone from our noisy world. Okay, so with that, those 4 points, I want to go through a little bit of how my work might give a lens to this. All right, okay, it's going to go. All right, so in astrophysics, we spend a lot of time taking pictures of the universe. And the universe is incredibly big. So in general, those images are static. So you get a picture, a different telescope might give you a different picture, and it might let you see deeper. And these are pictures of the center of the galaxy, where we're kind of diving into the center of our own galaxy, the Milky Way. And there's a desire to know what's at the center. And so what's been so different about the work that I've been able to do is to turn this static world into a dynamic world. And therefore, the state of knowledge has made a big jump forward in terms of what we can say about what's at the heart of our galaxy. So what we're going to say, loop again, if you didn't catch it the first time, right? That's what they say. You just say it 3 times, and people will get it after 3 times. In this case, the question was, is there a supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy? Which fundamentally is, do supermassive black holes, or do black holes exist? And our ability to answer that question has improved by a factor of 10 million by turning the static world into a dynamic world. Okay, so that's transformative, because the scale or size of the telescope didn't change by a factor of 10 million. It's your ability to see or do a kind of experiment that simply wasn't possible to do before. Okay, so why, okay, well, let's not do that again. Oops. Okay, so what enabled that to happen? The Keck telescopes. So if you know anything about my work, you know I'm going to talk about telescopes. So one of the things that makes it so exciting to be here at UCLA is that we have the largest telescopes in the world. And so when I first joined the faculty here, these telescopes were just coming online. So what that meant for me in terms of my professional development is that I wanted a job here more than anything else in the world, because if I had the best tool, my chances of asking an interesting question and being able to answer it, because remember, you can ask a lot of questions. Whether or not you can answer it and whether or not it's interesting are 2 different things. And so I knew that having access to a telescope like this was critical. So in terms of my own narrative, the tool was this telescope. And the risks involved, I'd say, are a couple-fold. One is that when I was in the job market, I actually had a different job offer before I had my job offer at UCLA. So I had to take the risk of turning down a bird in the hand in order to gain access to the tool that I wanted more than anything else in the world. So that's sort of risk number one. Risk number two was that what I was interested with this telescope was using it in a new and different way, using it in a way that's not traditional. And in fact, this was met, here I was a new professor, I thought I had a great idea. They even let me touch this telescope, which is amazing. This telescope, it's, well, research facilities are often very expensive. This at the time was a $180 million facility. So actually letting young faculty touch, which is the risk, I would say, that the University of California takes. So other telescopes in the world, astronomers aren't allowed to touch. So the fact that the University of California lets its faculty modify this incredible facility is part of what allows the University of California to be at the forefront, because we can make changes that maybe the National Observatory wouldn't be so comfortable with. So I came, this is why I was hired, because I really wanted to use this telescope in a new and different way. Most people think of telescopes as a big light bucket. You can collect a lot of light, but what I wanted to use it as was as an ability, effectively a magnifying glass. The bigger your telescope, the better your ability to see details. The description I like to make, or the analogy I like to make, is that if you think about the technique of pointillism, creating art with dots, the closer you are to the painting, the better your ability to see the individual dots. Well, in principle, the larger your telescope, the better your ability to resolve or see the individual pieces that an object is made out of. But there are a lot of problems with that. And that is the problem of the atmosphere. The atmosphere is great for us. It allows us to survive here on Earth, but it's a total headache. So what I wanted to do was overcome the distorting effects of the Earth's atmosphere. Actually, what my advisor used to say is, I take the twinkle out of stars. That's the more romantic version of it. So when I got here, in fact, the first thing that happened was that I had created a capacity with the facility, but I couldn't get the time on the telescope, because the august group that says, here's who gets to use the facility, your tool, you have to apply. You have to apply, you have to convince your colleagues that you have a good idea. And I think in this process of creativity, this is an interesting step when you have regulators and who allows you to, who's allowed to get access. So in this case, I thought I had it, but I didn't. So it was turned down. It was turned down because the techniques that I was talking about, people thought, well, it's not going to work. It's not going to work, and even if you can make it work, you probably won't see stars at the center of the galaxy, and if you do, you won't see them move. So that's a lot of no's. One of the things I would say in terms of overcoming these challenges, because often in creative process, what I like to say is every challenge creates an opportunity. So while I think we are somewhat programmed to resist or to think of challenges as negative, today I would say it's actually an opportunity. It's an opportunity to ask, why did somebody say no? How did somebody else view this idea, and why was it so challenging for them to accept? It's a chance for you to go back and ask yourself both, A, do you agree? Do you fundamentally believe in what you're trying to accomplish? In other words, is it worth the risk that you're asking, or the investment that you're asking? And because somebody said no, your job is to explain it better. So I think today I would say one of the most important things in the process of doing good work is to experience challenge as a good thing rather than a bad thing. So I did eventually get the time, and as you can see, we could make these images on your right. And in fact, it wasn't hard to see that they move. And in fact, those stars tell you that there is this 4 million times the mass of the sun at the center of the galaxy, creating this huge step forward. Now, these techniques were really hard. They were not easy. And in other words, there wasn't a big audience for them. So what happened next, and I think this is interesting in terms of sustaining. This is a technique that opens doors. This is a technique that really can transform our ways of viewing the universe, and yet it wasn't powerful enough. So where I took this was to advance the technology, to make it more powerful, because it was clear that if we could get a view, that there would be things that we couldn't predict. And this is also where it gets interesting, because I think there are these two modes. One in which we actually know the questions that we're asking very clearly, and we design the experiment to answer the question. And there's sometimes you just look because you have this fundamentally different way of looking, and you see things you just didn't know existed because your viewpoint is so different. And that is absolutely, actually I'm going to skip this, what has happened at the center of the galaxy. So this is an animation that shows the motions of all the stars that we've been studying for the past 25 years. So this is definitely a project that requires a huge investment, commitment. It is a passion project. And it just gets better with time because it does require time to evolve. And the further you get away, the more patient you have to be, or you have to improve your technology. But what's so interesting about this image is that it upends almost every single prediction that could be made for what you would expect to find near a black hole. We didn't expect that. So there are three that I'm going to mention, or that you can see, because there's three colors, in this, or yeah, I think there's three colors. There's four kinds of colors of stars, and they describe what kinds of stars they are. I mean, it's actually rather amazing that we can figure out that this far away, we know what these stars are. So prediction number one is that black holes are, well, you know, they have a bad reputation. And it's warranted because the gravity is really strong, which means they tend to tear things apart. So it means that it's really not a conducive place to form stars, because star formation requires kind of a very delicate object to collapse, and black holes want to tear those delicate things apart. So prediction number one is there should be absolutely no young stars. Well, the aqua green things, those are the young stars. Those are the most abundant things we saw. I like to call this the paradox of youth. How did they get there? The second prediction is that the old stars have had a lot of time to interact, so they kind of know how to find the center of the party, so to speak. And the center of the party in dynamical systems is the most massive thing. So in other words, the prediction is around a supermassive black hole, which is really massive, there are going to be a lot of old stars. Okay, so what do the old stars look like? They're the orange ones. And if you notice, there's a dearth of old stars. So again, question number two, where are the old stars? Okay, and then the magenta things. Those are what people like to call the unknown unknowns. We didn't even think to make a prediction about these things because we couldn't imagine that they could possibly be at the center of the galaxy. Okay, how many of you have seen the movie Interstellar? Okay, if you've seen the movie Interstellar, I can make an analogy that works, and otherwise I'm just going to say black holes tear things apart. Or actually, there is an analog that I can make, tides. So tides on Earth, if you're a surfer, you like to follow the tide charts. It tends to pull or bulge the water out on the Earth. That's a gravitational interaction. So the thing that Interstellar made use of is if you take a planet and put it near a black hole, that's a much more extreme process. So the tidal wave that was developed on those planets that you saw in Interstellar were immense. So the lesson that you should take is that black holes tend to tear things apart, the outer layer. So those magenta things are stars or objects whose outer layers we can actually watch being stripped off the object as they make its closest approach near a black hole. This is, again, something we couldn't have possibly imagined because the characteristics of such an object weren't in the realm of our imagination. So what I find is interesting is that when there are moments like this, where everything you can see is not consistent with your theories, the idea that I think this is I don't know, nirvana. This is like, I feel like I'm a kid in a candy shop. When I don't understand things, that's when you have the opportunity to be creative. Because our current structure, our current knowledge doesn't afford us the opportunity to put these new pieces in. So it's an opportunity to say, let's take it all down. Let's see how we can put it back together again and learn something new about this fundamental object in our ideas of how the universe works. I mean, black holes are it and galaxies are it, and we think there's an interaction, and we do not get that interaction. Okay, so there's a clock here. Yes, I'm almost done, okay. We also get to learn how black holes eat. And I just wanted to make this connection that sometimes you have connections in unexpected realms. So we've actually done a project in collaboration with a finance professor. And we only realized this because I had a group member who went to work for the financial industry and came back. In other words, he got to learn about a language of a different world, came back and met a finance professor who was an avid astronomer. And that led to a totally different tool for us to understand how black holes grow over the time. So I'm just going to end by saying, tools are it. So I'm going to tell you about the next project that UC is doing. This is called the 30-meter telescope. It's, as you might imagine, 30 meters. It's big. It's about 3 times as big as Keck in diameter. But for the kinds of work I do, the growth or potential, or you could say like scientific power to give us a new understanding, goes as the diameter to the 4th power. So this means that this instrument, for things I understand, should give me a factor of 100 more power to understand how the universe works. We can make predictions of what we should expect to see, but if anything I've learned about the center of the galaxy is to expect the unexpected. And that, by far, is the most exciting part of doing research, and when the creativity is at the maximum, which is when you don't understand how the pieces fit together. Thanks for your attention.
A little shift here, and maybe you would like to, pass the clicker and come sit down next to me.
I would love to.
That was amazing.
Is my microphone on yet?
Wow, Andrew's presentation was really good. Okay, so I don't see my slides up yet. Should I do a click to get them going?
No.
Oh, here we go. Okay. So hey everybody, I'm Evan Sullivan. As I was introduced earlier, I'm a user experience designer who works with Honda and Acura. Up on the screen behind me are the 2 apps I currently work on, Honda Link and Acura Link. They let you remotely connect with your car, remotely unlock it, remotely start the engine if you want to heat it up or cool it down ahead of time. And some of you may be wondering, what exactly does a user experience designer do? Well, basically we just design software. So everything you see here, we design. We design how information is laid out, we design how the screens flow into one another, and we even design the details all the way down to how the individual graphics and buttons look. And I'm so excited to talk to you all about creativity because obviously as a designer, creativity's played a huge role in my life. And that role's been that scared the crap out of me all the time. And I'm actually kind of glad Andrea's presentation was so good and so impressive because for me, it's been a very different story. For me, the big challenge is getting into the groove of creativity in the first place. It stopped me from starting projects I was excited about. It stopped me from applying to jobs I really wanted. And it almost stopped me from becoming a designer at all. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay, so hopefully this talk doesn't just become all about my personal hang-ups. But I have a feeling I'm not the only person in the room who has some fearful relationship with this idea of creativity because so often it's so big and it's so impressive. And in fact, this fear is actually pretty easy to see in people. I was here for the workshop a little bit earlier. People were a little hesitant to share their dances they had come up with. And if you work in corporate America, this is super obvious. And the easy way to see this is send someone an invitation to a meeting called Creative Drawing Session. You send this out, And immediately, anyone you have emailed this to will come up to your desk and they'll be, oh my God, Evan, I got your invite. That's so exciting. I'm not going to have to draw on this, right? This is just going to be you drawing, right? And it really freaks people out. And what's up with that? Why is sharing any creative act, even on a small scale, so terrifying? So let's try to break this down a little bit. Creativity, after all, is a word, it's a concept. And what do words or concepts do for us as human beings? Fundamentally, they're a tool, and they tell us what something is. So here's a bit of an on-the-nose example. Here's a famous painting by Van Gogh. Got a lovely blue ribbon on it. And so are we all kind of comfortable that saying, at a very generic level, this is something we would label as creativity? Well, equally important as telling us what something is, words also tell us what something is not. And so here we have a very beige office with very beige cubicles. And actually, whoever was ordering the equipment, I don't know if you can see it, they went off the rails and ordered these like blood red office chairs. But despite their best efforts, I still don't think most of us would pick this picture on the right to represent creativity. And this is what's going on here, right? There are things that we do deem as creative, and there's things that we don't. And without thinking about it too much, it's kind of a binary. It's kind of an all or nothing situation. And so here is Sunrisk, my first app I built on my own. And what do you all think? Would you give it the creativity check mark? Okay, all right, hold on. Because here's Instagram. Okay? And now that Instagram, I don't think I need to give any introduction for that. Now that Instagram's up there, and we've got the header creative app designs, what the heck's mine doing up there anymore? Do you guys still think it's worthwhile of being on the same slide? Because standing here right now, even years after I built it, even years after people have downloaded and using it, I'm still terrified that when I show it to all of you, you're going to say, no way. Get it off of there. Doesn't belong up there. Doesn't cut it. And so the idea is, as soon as you make something, and as soon as you share it with other people, it's going to get put up on a chart like this. And you can see it's not a very forgiving chart, right? And what the heck is going on with this zone of irrelevance nonsense in the middle here? What's that about? Well, the thing is, if you're trying to do something creative, it's not enough to be mediocre. That's kind of a no-go zone. Because if you're trying to do something creative, you can't just do what's been done before. You can't just be competent. You can't just copy what's already out there. You have to do something fundamentally new. And what's so freaking scary about that is usually the way things have been done before are done for pretty good reasons. And so when you try to do something new, you're going to have to break some rules that people have about what's been done. And yeah, we all take it for granted now. Every phone's an iPhone or an Android. They all work the same. They all die within a day. We just deal with it. But when the iPhone first came out, it didn't have a great battery life. It had a finicky on-screen keyboard. And it wasn't even that reliable for making calls. And a lot of serious people dismissed it as just a rich person's toy, or as Apple not getting it, not capable of making a good phone. And so that's what's so scary. You're not even going to end up being mediocre. The fear is that if you try something new, if you start breaking rules like this, people aren't just going to think your work's mediocre. They're going to think it's dumb. They're going to think it doesn't make any sense. And it's scary to be down there when you're trying to shoot for this high bar of creativity. And so this fear leads us straight into a trap. And it's a powerful one. And it's the trap that as long as I don't make anything, or as long as I don't share what I've made, nobody can tell me I'm good or not. Nobody's going to judge me. And the fear is as soon as you actually make something and put it out in the world, people will see it and they're going to be like, nah, that's not it. But even this, I don't think, is the whole picture. I don't think this is really what scares us. Because, why not? Put something together, put it out there, see what people think. Why not take the risk? Well, you see, I don't think we're really afraid of people saying our work is bad. I think we're afraid that the title of creative doesn't apply to us. I'm not creative. I'm not good enough. And at least I was terrified that as soon as I put my work out into the world, people would find that out. And like I said earlier, this fear almost stopped me from even pursuing a design career. So to kind of dig into that, let's look at how I did start my design career. Here we go, the master plan, how to become a designer, the Evan Sullivan way. Step one, you got to take care of this one first, get a philosophy degree at UCLA. Funny enough, my first design job, I was hired because I had a philosophy degree, no joke. Step two, get a job doing IT. What better pathway into the design industry, right? When you think creativity, you think IT guys, right? And so step three, so step three, getting from IT to design, that's pretty scary. That's pretty, I don't know how I'm going to do that. Let's not think about it too much. But step four is clear, right? I want to become a designer. Well, that didn't really work out. You see, even on the first day that I started that IT job after I graduated, I knew then that I badly wanted to be a designer, that I wanted nothing more than to do product design. And you want to know how long it took between taking that job and the first time I even tried to put a product together? 4 years. 4 years from graduating, where every day I would wake up, feel a crazy passion to be a designer. And I'd go online, and I'd read about design, I'd study design, and I would even look at the other cool products that other real designers were making. And then every day I never consistently opened a design program and tried to make something for myself. And it's because of these words, right? Designer, creative. I was waiting because I didn't feel like I had what it took. I looked at the definition of creative and I didn't see myself. I hadn't made anything. How could I be a creative? I hadn't designed anything. How could I be a designer? And I want to ask all of you, is there a label you're hoping to get one day? Is there a label you have right now that maybe you're afraid you're going to lose? And if you're like me, and you're waiting around to when you finally feel like, oh, I got this, I'm a designer now, let's go and design some things, that day's never going to come. At least for me, it hasn't. Even after being a professional designer for 5 years, even now that I'm a senior UX designer at a major corporation, every single day I wake up and I say to myself, I don't know if I have what it takes. I don't know if I'm really a creative. I don't know if my boss is going to like this new design I have. And for me, that's the power of this word, creativity. And so how do we break out of this, right? We got to stop waiting around to meet this definition, because we never will. It's not about being something. It's not about being a creative. For me, creativity is now a verb. It's about creating. Because unlike those labels that we showed earlier, you don't have to be anyone to at least make an attempt. And look at some of this stuff. Some of this stuff I made years ago and it's totally amateur. But you know what? It built up. And it started to get people noticing what I was doing. And so I would say, it doesn't matter what you did today. It doesn't matter if you made a ton of progress on your personal goals. It doesn't matter if you made none at all. I did that for 4 years. But tomorrow's a new day, and you're already good enough to start creating whatever it is you care about. And that's all I got.
That was beautiful. Why don't you take this seat here? Okay, and by design, Kyle Abraham. Would you like this?
I don't think I need it.
Okay, he doesn't need
How to
this.
use it.
All
Do I
right.
have to use it for my queuing?
Or you can tell them.
Oh yeah, we'll figure it out. I'll be like,
Mark
Mark,
could help you up
cool.
there.
Hi everybody. So excited to be here with you. It's an exciting topic for me for so many reasons, especially thinking about dance on my end and choreography. I remember, I guess first off, for a show of hands, I'm pretty sure everyone's gonna raise their hand, but for a show of hands, how many people have like gone through something emotional, gone in their room or living room and just put on a song and just danced? A show of hands? Okay, that's what I'm talking about, right? So I think for me, my entryway into dance before I even thought about the potential of being a choreographer, thinking about creativity, I was at church camp when I was probably around 11 years old, 10 or 11 years old, making dances to Belle Biv DeVoe's Poison, which probably not the right thing to do when you're at church camp, but you know, whatever, it was a song that was moving me. And it's kind of like over the year thinking about suggestions and people who kind of believed in me that made me feel that what I had to do and what I was doing with dance served purpose and I could potentially have a career in dance. The way that I made that dance to Belle Biv DeVoe's Poison was doing what so many of you have probably done as well. We just did a thing where we call Catch What You Can. I had me and my friends, they'd stand behind me and we'd make what we call a phrase and movement. So a sequence of steps that we put to that song. I wonder if I can get a couple volunteers to just do a little Catch What You Can with me in space. Yes, come on. I only need like 3. Yeah, come on down. I'm gonna take off my shoes. So I'm mic'd up, so I can't get too crazy anyway, so come on up. I think we're just gonna play with the phrase, maybe just standing behind me. So there's nothing planned here. I have no idea what I'm gonna do. And we're just gonna catch what you can. We'll do it a couple times. I'll probably look back and say, did I do that right? And let's just see what happens. Yeah? Cool. Yeah, great. Trust me, there's more opportunities to come on down here. So let's go. Let's start like this. Yeah. So we go here, we go here. Yeah. So we go here, we go here. Right. A couple more times. Here, we go here, we kick here. Yeah. So we go here, we go here, we kick here. We turn all the way around. Like so. I heard that. Good thing you ain't mic'd. I heard that cuss word. Okay, we go here, we go here, we kick here, we go all the way around. Maybe like 3 more steps? Okay, from here, let's just shake it out a couple times. Just hands just go forward and back. Hands go forward and back, and then from here, we take both fingers in this way, and then we take them back out this way. And then we just step with a little bit of swag. That's good. Yeah? Let's go back and see what we have. Because I don't know what we're doing. We go here, we go here, we kick here, we take it all the way around, and then we shake it out, we go back and forth. And then from here, we go in, we turn back out, and then we just step with some swag. Maybe like 2 more times? Okay, great. We go around. Here, kick, all the way around, no, no, no. We go in, we come back out, and a little swag. One final time. Cool. We go around the corner, forward, kick, all the way around, no, safe, I guess it's safe, right? Safe, in, out, and then step with some swag. Good? Can I take a peek? As I said to the previous class, everything you do is perfect. Let's see what you got. Hey, give me some love. Ready, and you go. Nice. Now, okay, y'all. Okay. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Yeah. Nice. Good. Yes. Thank you. So, what I would love is if I can get maybe however many of you are so willing to go on the sides and work on a variation. And by variation, I just mean you can take any of those steps, you can chop and screw them however you like. You can change the order, you can change the level, you can change the speed. If you want to work with a partner, you can work with a partner. All of those things are open. Do I have at least 2 volunteers? Yes, yes, yes. Okay, cool. So you can go on the sides, and I'll come back to you. I promise. I won't forget about you. Yeah, you can go over in that space there, and maybe go over in that space if you don't mind. Great. Wonderful. So that's a little bit of catch what you can. Sometimes I go into the studio, I have no idea what I'm going to do. Sometimes I will have a phrase made, a sequence of steps. I will have that material ready for my dancers. I have a dance company of about 11 dancers. So sometimes I come in like that. Other times I come in with a video of myself improvising, and they learn those improvisations. Some people are learning my upper body, some people are learning my lower body, and we create work from that. Other times I may not even be there. Like, they actually have rehearsal this week, and I'm here with you, yay. So the great thing I get to do, and that happens, is I call them up, and I sometimes give them a list of action words. If I can get, I only even really need 2 volunteers, but I'll take a couple more. This one is a little simpler, perhaps, maybe, depending on how you look at it. Great, 1. Anyone else? Bueller, anyone? Yes, great. Hey, good looking out. Thanks. So I'm gonna sit down while you all can hang out, and we're gonna do a little bit of action words. So I'm just gonna give you some words, and let's just see what you do. All right. And you'll just go at the same time. I'll give you 3 words, and you can just kind of take them. And don't think about it too much, just go, whatever comes to mind. Slice, dive, kick. And you go. Slice, dive, kick. Right. Very different interpretations, right? Can we do a couple more? Let's try turn. Let me see. What do I got? Turn, swim, nay-nay. Hey, nice, cool. All right, and then with that, let's just take it one step further. Let's take those same 3 and just change, I'll give you 2 more times. Change the level.
Okay. Level as in?
Height, change your height at different times, however you so choose. Ready, and you go. Swim. Dope. Great, and I just want 1 more from the 2 of you. Great. My last one, you can use the same 3. We got those words, right? We got turn, swim, and nay-nay. Hey, cool. So I want to see the 2 of you come together and just see what happens if you take those 2 words and put them together. So just kind of duetting. Ready?
So we gotta do the same?
Yeah, a little interaction. Okay. And we go. Nice, great. Cool, thank you both, cool. And you can go back to your seats. Thanks so much, appreciate it. Cool. So the range of possibilities just becomes endless for me, and it's just so much fun to play with these different possibilities and points of entry. One thing that I kind of start with before that is a lot of times I'm starting with a narrative. So much of it has to do with, for me, home and this idea of home, something that we worked on in the group I got to work with earlier this evening. One work that I'd like to share with you is a work called Pavement, which is from 2012. And Pavement, for me, is looking at 2 things. It's looking at the writings of W.E.B. Du Bois, Souls of Black Folk, and the film Boys in the Hood by John Singleton. And for me, thinking about that film as a time capsule for what was that, 1992, when I was probably in middle school. That's around the same time of Belle Biv DeVoe's Poison, people. So I thought maybe what I'd do is show you just a brief kind of promotional clip of that work where you can see how we've applied some of these same things into action. So Mark, can you give us a little bit of my little video? All I wanna I'd love to do is just share one other thing just because time is tight. I want to talk about, actually, no, let's see our variations, and then I'll go into my last little thing. Let's see what you all made. Everything you do is perfect. Let's look at one group at a time. Yeah, come on out. We'll start with a trio. Let's see what you got. Oh, solo, okay. Ready, and we go. Bueno. Yeah, just do it. Nice. The only other thing that I try and think about when I'm working is a lot of ideas about found gestures. So using gestures that you see in everyday culture. Can I get a couple examples of some found gestures? This is one, this is another, this is another, this is one. So let's just look at those and maybe we'll just put some into a short sequence. We have this, we have this. What did I miss? Waving, peace sign? Okay. One more time. Waving, thumbs up, okay, peace sign. Okay, cool. I'll just do like 40 seconds of something. Can we have the music on from here? Is it gonna play on this? Nothing's playing. There we go. Thanks. Yeah, thanks. Beautiful.
Andrea and Evan, let's come over here. Yeah, I'd like to sit there. That would be my favorite place to sit. We're just going to leave these chairs as they are.
It's awesome.
I want to do something a little different tonight. Remember, you all students, basic. You had some questions. And I know you have more questions, but I thought we'd just start out with a kind of lightning round, if you will bear with me. But first of all, you know what? I just looked at you, and then I thought, oh my gosh, that was amazing. Each one of you. Thank you so much. Evan, I think we all knew what you were talking about.
Right.
And so appreciate the humor as well. So, you know, obviously creativity is central to all of your work. And it's also central to all of our experience. And our students have come up with some amazing questions, and I didn't want to miss out on them. So what I want to do is I'm going to say a question, and the shortest, quickest answer, but if you need to complicate it, we're there with you. Right?
All right.
So in other words, okay, right, okay. But we have 5 minutes. Do you have a timer? You ready? Okay, here we go. 10 questions. Why is creativity often considered thinking out of the box? Does that imply we are in a box? Lorenzo?
Models.
What?
Models.
Models?
Models. It's framework.
Okay. Are we in a box?
In a framework.
We're in a framework.
Well, this is really interesting, right? Because more and more of the world is human created, designed, right? So more and more of what you interact with every single day was decided by a human being. And this is really tricky because when you're trying to overcome nature, all you got to do is figure out a way to be stronger than it. But when you're trying to change stuff that people have created, you don't only have to figure out a better solution, but then you got to convince those people or enough other people to actually make that change.
Okay, I'm going to go on, although I kind of just wanted to stay with that one. How has capitalism shaped the way we view creativity?
Oh boy.
Corroded.
What?
Corroded.
Corroded creativity.
I think it challenges it, but I think it's exciting to see what people can create independent of capitalism. I've seen the most beautiful dances made in a kitchen, let alone because they didn't have means to afford studio space.
Well, and I think that all three of you, in a sense, spoke about this like drive and passion that lives. I mean, yes, you have a job where you earn money, and you earn money, but but that's not why you do it, right?
Yeah, well, and this is actually literally pretty much the argument I have to kind of ride the line between every single day, because obviously I work Honda, they want to make a lot of money. But at the same time, our products are ideally supposed to be helpful to people, to society, to the planet. And so I think it's kind of a perspective thing. You could really view capitalism as this thing that perverts creativity or turns our systems against ourselves. But on the flip side, in user experience design, a lot of what we have to do is check our own assumptions about what helps other people, and doing research through that. And one of the best ways to figure out if you're helping other people is if they're giving you money for your products. So in some ways, capitalism can actually help guide us to make things that are more genuinely useful to people.
And I would also say there's some things that are not valued monetarily, too, that are equally important.
Yes. I mean, I guess the reason for the word corroded in my mind is that the question is, where is the money coming from? Is it coming from a space of generosity and freedom? Or is it that you have to convince, which means you have to provide a story or a narrative to suit the purpose, which may not be from a place of authenticity or...
Getting some snaps out there, yeah. Yeah, and I think sometimes when we're in a kind of commodity frame of mind, that doesn't actually support thinking outside the box. right? Like, you were going to say something or no? Whatever, anything you say is perfect?
Everything you do is perfect. Everything you say is perfect, sure.
Okay.
I don't know if that says true. I think everything you do
All
is
right.
perfect, but everything you say, I don't know about that.
All right. What is the difference between creativity and insanity?
Oh boy. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there.
Why don't we just do a tiny bit of unpack, whether or not we answer that question? Why don't we just do a tiny little bit of unpacking that?
I'll go for it.
Okay.
The beholder. So what is insanity? It doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense to whom? I think a lot of, I mean, in fact, in terms of the word insanity is often associated with mental disorder, but in fact, so much of scientific leaps have been made from people with
Who think differently.
You're right, who think differently. So that's a label. So that's why I say it's the beholder.
Do original ideas exist? Why are you laughing?
Well, this is kind of a trick question, right? Because, well, again, you could boil anything down to like everything is a remix, right? I mean, if you look at it, everything from electric cars to computers, someone built using the same raw materials everyone had back in the medieval era. You know, if you think about it, a microprocessor is just a rock we tricked into thinking. But I don't think, so, you know, when you're looking at timelines like that, yeah, maybe making the iPhone 11 after the iPhone 10 isn't super original, but, you know, that's how things change. It's incremental, and it adds up to something that's genuinely new.
We just got the alarm there. Can we do a couple more of these questions? Okay. Does anybody else want to respond to that one? That was great, Evan.
I don't know, I feel like maybe part of it is the acknowledgement of what came before. I think that's the disservice that happens sometimes as we're trying to be so original, is we're not thinking about what someone may have done in the past, for better or worse. I think it's important to think about the lineage of something and maybe what is a derivative of something, or if it seems like an original idea, maybe it's good to think about, do a little bit of research and see maybe where the origins of that idea may have come from, or where you share your likeness with another thinker.
No, that's really great. And it also reminds me of what you said earlier about not only, you know, to ask a question, but also, I think you said also that the question,
Is it answerable? Is it interesting?
is it an interesting question? Is it answerable? And it made me think too that a good question also sits inside of a larger context or legacy of knowledge. So, you know, I can't go ask a really good astrophysics question.
Yes,
Well, maybe I could, but I don't have the know-how to do that. Okay. Next question. Is creativity the same as freedom? We'll give you a little time to answer this, but not much.
I feel like it could be stifling in the same way that that idea of the box could be stifling. I didn't really dive into that answer the first time, but
You can go back.
sure. I think the thing is that however large that box may be, people at times are looking for the parameters to make that box all the more small. So when you're thinking about freedom and creativity, those things kind of find their connection. Yes, creativity can be freeing, but there's always these parameters that you're putting yourself in, even in asking yourself whether or not there are parameters. By asking the question, you've placed something on yourself.
Yeah. Actually, to come back to your class, somebody asked about the framework of a creative process. It's almost like asking, creativity is interesting in the context of a question. So limitless freedom, actually, it's just as mushy.
Yeah, like if we said, hey, you could do anything you want, go ahead. How would you decide?
I'd still just make a PowerPoint, that's all I can do.
You would do a PowerPoint? Okay. It's a good choice. But I do think that sometimes we mistake, I think it's a really good question because I think sometimes we mistake creativity for an entirely open-ended opportunity. And I think what you're saying is that we need to actually push up against or narrow it down or have a good question or.
It's probably in some ways being aware of what you're doing and what you're asking. Like, are you asking to in some ways make that box smaller, or are you asking to make it larger? Are you limiting your own freedom by the parameters that you're placing on yourself or on whatever the situation may be?
And actually, now that you mentioned that, that makes me think of freedom of like what question you want to ask, right? I feel like if you feel like you're totally free, it can be kind of going on to what my presentation was all about. You can become worried that maybe no one else cares about the question you want to ask, right? Or like maybe no one else wants to use the telescope to search for the thing you're using. And so in a certain sense, if you feel like your work is totally out of context or out of connection with what came before or what's being done, that can be really kind of trapping in its own right.
And I imagine cause a good deal of insecurity. Just as you were saying that, I was thinking,
You're
oh
telling
my
me.
gosh, what if, I think this is a good idea, but what if it's like completely off the wall, out of the box, out of the outer space? Okay, here's another question. What are the biggest enemies of creativity? And I especially, we can think these are grand questions, but for you, what is the biggest challenge to your creativity?
Be self-doubt.
Also, lack of
Ego.
tools. What?
Ego.
Oh,
Why are you doing the work? Is it about, because once you get caught, in my world, it's like once you get caught, for me, once I get caught up in the rat race of who's first, the creativity gets suppressed because then you're worried about your place in the work as opposed to the work itself.
so how do you manage that?
The first time I smile at Vic because my first clear, conscious confrontation with this was when I had my first child, which is why I met Vic, because our kids were in school together. But I couldn't compete in the same way. And so I had to let go of this mode of being first. But once I let go, it was incredibly liberating because then it was more about the work than about your position in the field. It was, for me, it was actually an interesting recognition of that was liberating, actually. Hard, though. We were talking about hard spaces. Like, that was a hard one.
So somewhere between too much ego and too much self-doubt is that sweet spot.
Somewhere in there.
What's that?
You have to remain a child. So you're not.
I can't hear.
To remain a child.
Oh, that's actually one of the questions. Really, and I think this might be my last question for now. Why are children often more creative than adults? And actually, we have to check the walls and see if that question, the assumptions in that question are sound. Are children more creative than adults?
Yeah, I think it's just because they're ignorant.
Because they're what?
No, but for real. Again, things are set up, things are built, things are designed, things are put in place for reasons. And as adults, we all understand that. And so for a lot of the rules we follow in our lives, we know the reasons behind those. But for a lot of the rules in our lives, we actually don't know the reasons. We just know that everyone does that, or all things are made that way. And we just assumed someone had a good reason for it, otherwise somebody would have changed it by now. And I think children really have this incredible perspective where they don't assume there's good reasons behind anything, or it doesn't even occur to them. So if something doesn't make sense to them, it's so obvious, and they can point that out.
I think this is so interesting as a question, because there's an aspect of this about, or at least often people talk about this in the context of peer pressure and the fear of being wrong, which creeps in, especially I think at middle school. So the younger kids are really uninhibited about their ideas. But I also think there's something interesting about the fact that kids are figuring things out. There's so much to figure out when you're a kid. I mean, you got to figure out the rules of the road, what you can get away with mom versus dad. There are all sorts of things they're figuring out. So they're very much, I think as kids, there's a lot to figure out. So you're in that inquisitive, I think that was such an interesting point. You have to have that childlike curiosity about the world. And we refer to it that way, childlike, which is this non-peer pressure. In fact, one of the things I was going to say earlier, there's something about creativity when you don't have to worry about the social capital that you may or may not lose by making a statement. And I think there's something interesting about whether or not you're inside the community in terms of your ability to suggest new ideas. I think there's less social capital to be lost when you're outside. So in the sense of how risk is viewed. Right? That's just a random thought for.
Yeah, I don't know how to respond really, because I think about my parents when I was a kid, and they would tell me I could do anything. So for me, I felt like, in terms of creativity, it was seemingly limitless. So, but then I know as an adult, I'm not told that same thing. But I know not all children are growing up that way, where they're being told that they can do anything. So it's a complicated thing to think about kids in relationship to creativity, because I think a lot of it has to do with their parents and what they're instilling in them. But yeah, I think I was just lucky in terms of my relationship with my parents. But the overarching thing of children and creativity, I don't really know if it seems like to me it's really based on how you're raised. But in terms of how the level of freedom and or creativity you're experiencing as a young child.
I wonder, there are a few more questions here, but
Can I go back to this?
Yeah.
I thought a lot about this question, about your native environment, or however we want to talk about our original place. And I come from a place of a lot of difference, and therefore a lot of tension. So I've often viewed what I do as a way of, it's almost like it wasn't a calm place. So that forced me into, I think, a place of wanting to find new rules or new ways of doing things. So it's interesting to think about, like those are two different frameworks for thinking about what enables creativity. Is it a push out, or is it a nurturing?
I have no idea.
I don't know either, but
combination?
or no one solution. Right?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think it's a finite thing. But
Yeah.
So would you say creativity is at the center of each of your work?
Yeah, sure.
I think it's a piece of it. I mean, I think there's so much of just hard work and sort of exposure. So I also think there's also interesting, so only a piece.
Yeah, you know what, actually, I want to expand on my answer, because you said what is important here. The act of creating something, at least for me, does not feel like it does on the outside, like making a big breakthrough discovery. It's making hundreds of screens that don't quite do what you need it to do, or you keep putting a new design into a focus group and it keeps not being well received. And so most of the time you're making the wrong thing, and only at the end do you make the right thing. And the process of doing that is not comfortable, or it doesn't feel creative in the moment.
I think I don't even know if I'm making the right thing. I'm just trying to make something. I think that's part of the struggle sometimes. It's like when you're putting out so much, at a certain point, it's like you have to, sometimes it's like trying to not question what it is you put forward, but just putting it forward and feeling okay with what the outcome is, regardless of whether or not it feels like a success and to myself or to the people around me. But it's like, okay, well, I did that. I should at least acknowledge that before I can go on to the next thing.
I want to take a 2-minute, not really an intermission, not even a break. Really, it's 2 minutes for you to work on what it is you want to talk about right here across this space. So just the reason why you need the 2 minutes is you need to share your idea with somebody next to you. So I'm hoping that when I say go, this whole room will erupt in sound and you're going to be talking to somebody next to you. Okay, ready? Go. Okay, come on back. There's a slightly bigger space tonight between this rug and you all. And there's a good reason. It's because we wanted to leave more space for Kyle to move. But so we're going to work right now on bridging that gap, building bridges between you and this space here so that we can be a room together. We want to know the kinds of questions you have. And of course, as usual, we want your questions to be brief. All right, we have some microphones, and we've got one right there.
Hi there. I have a question about what I think all of you said about asking good questions and what creativity, like what constitutes creativity, like what is important, I guess. And like, I would like to know what that criteria would look like. Like, what is a good question?
That's a good question.
I think one key question that I'm always asking myself is if I'm being honest with myself. Yeah.
I guess I think of it as, is it going to create new knowledge or understanding?
For me, whenever I have to make a creative decision, most of the stuff I work on is going to be used by other people. So the question I usually try to ask, am I doing something creative? What are the motives behind my creative idea? Am I trying to just make a splash? Do I just think it's cool personally? Or is this creative choice, is this breaking from the norm in service of the people who are going to use what I use? And that's really important for me to consider.
I want to just point out that each of your answers are also such a reflection of the fields that you're in too, right? You know, trusting yourself, new knowledge, who does this serve, you know, that I'm sure it's more complicated than that, you know, in terms of your deciding what is a good question for yourself. But those initial responses really speak to the ways in which you are in the world and creating. Yeah, that's a great question. All right, I think we maybe have a mic somewhere. Yep.
It's a question for Andrea and the panel.
This is a question for Andrea and the panel. In the context of pursuing a bold creative idea that may be materially different from what is, it requires within the creative process to sustain the discomfort that you talked about, and it can be tempting with self-doubt or to be a little closed-minded and not respond to what your testing of that idea is actually formulating into. So I was curious if you have any strategies around sustaining the discomfort, that phase within the creativity process, any strategies for overcoming it?
Oh gosh, that's a hard one. Like, how do you stick with it? How do you? I think everybody has their own modes for sustaining discomfort. I guess one of the big things is actually it kind of comes back to what Kyle just said. It's the self-doubt gets in the way. So taking a pause, looking away, doing something else. For me, it comes in a lot of different forms. Sometimes I find I just have to drop everything else and focus only on that. And then sometimes it's the exact opposite. Like, I just can't look at it anymore. I got to go do something else. And it's like what they say, it's like sometimes when you're doing something else, your brain, it's like, again, what sort of gets your brain engaged in this. And sometimes it's not looking at it directly. They say, your best ideas are in the shower, and that's because you're not thinking about it directly necessarily. I don't know. So those are two really contradictory, but for me, important pieces.
I find that same thing actually in choreography. I have to work on two things at the same time. I need a break from the one to make something that's ideally the complete opposite of that other thing.
Wow.
Actually, to build on that, it's why teaching, doing this kind of work in a university context is really awesome. Because research takes, you can ask a question. Look, I'm still doing the same work 25 years later. Sometimes you don't even know if you've asked the right question. It's just long, and how many people actually care about what you're answering, you're asking. It's small, it's really hard work. But teaching, oh my goodness, there's immediate feedback. Like, students look glazed over if you're not hitting it right. And there's, it's just a totally different feeling and setting, and somehow putting those two things next to each other is really enlivening for both activities.
Okay, there's another.
You're right here. So I don't know if this is a restatement of the same question or a precursor to it, but you're all experts in your field, but you all talk a lot about the value of not knowing. So how do you get yourself as experts to the place of not knowing to begin with?
I don't know what I know at the beginning of a process. I feel like maybe there's an idea that I am curious about. I had a premiere just not even a full week ago where I said to a director, I want to make a piece using German lieder songs. I don't know what I want to do with it, but that's what I'm interested in. It's the kind of exploration that helps me to then find a point of entry, regardless of how that may be received from an audience. But I think there's just this initial curiosity, and that curiosity may spark that kind of investigative time to kind of try to figure something out and grapple with something that probably isn't but so comfortable to hopefully get to something that is worthwhile, but not always.
I'll jump in if there's no comment. Yeah, over here. So.
Wait. Just before you go, I wonder if there wanted to be some other responses to that question.
Well, I think it's so interesting in terms of the question of not knowing, because you can not know at so many different stages of what seems to be if you talk about the creative process as an arc, sort of the beginning thing of not knowing actually what you're doing. I mean, that Evan talked a lot about, and I feel like we all get there. It's like you do one project, at the end of it, it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do next? I'm never going to have another good idea. That state happens a lot, and what do you do to find something? It might be just exposing yourself to new ideas. In my field, it would be reading new papers, going to talks. The university system has this framework of sabbaticals. Every 7 years you go away. It's a great idea. It gets you get exposed to just different people who have different ideas. And then there's the piece which is really interesting of when you're in the middle of it and you get to a place and you don't know. And then it's about not knowing how to solve the problem. So I think it's interesting in terms of like, there are different stages of not knowing.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and especially in product development, there's literally a tool we use to visualize this called a hill chart. And you put your project on this chart, and you start at the bottom of the hill, and that's where you don't know how to even solve the problem, and you might not even know clearly what the problem is. And you move uphill, and believe me, it's an uphill process to figure out, okay, what's the problem we're really trying to solve here? What are the parameters? And then when you get to the top of the hill, okay, this is the problem, this is the solution we think we're gonna have. And a lot of people, when they think of creativity, they just think of that ideation phase, right, that discovery phase. But you're still at the top of the hill. You still gotta go all the way down the other side to the end of actually building whatever it is you've thought of. And that can be just as scary and just as unknown feeling as the initial kind of creative conception.
Yes, so, yeah, just on a very personal note, love the boots. They just are so astronomy. Just wanted to acknowledge that. Love the vulnerability of your presentation, and Poison is such a classic hip hop song, so I get it. I get to immerse myself in a world of students who create community service organizations, and so in that area, we're always intrigued with how creativity kind of inspires consciousness raising, right? So there's a quote that I didn't think was appropriate, but y'all kind of created the context. See how I did that, created the context? So Che Guevara once said that voluntary service is the creative school of consciousness. And I wondered, how does that resonate with either of you?
Can you just say it again?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
voluntary service is the creative school of consciousness.
Spoken by a murderer.
Well,
What? Okay.
okay, politics about Che Guevara aside, let's not get into that. I think the quote does have some merit because so much of creativity, at least in the work that I do, is learning about the perspectives of other people. And so much of creativity, I think, demands that really, no matter what field you're in. You can't just come in with your own perspective, as important as that is. You need to expose your ideas to what other people think and how other people live and how other people see the world.
Yeah, I think about the workshop that we did earlier. We were doing an exercise that I was building primarily for LGBTQ teens and senior citizens to bring them together while working on a dance about love, longing, and loss. And it's through the conversations and the workshop activities that we were participating in that helped to actually initiate a point of entry for movement and for purpose in the work. So without that kind of workshopping of ideas and connection to a community, I don't think the work, well, I know that work wouldn't have been what it ultimately was.
I guess I mean, my response is very similar. I mean, we go and give talks all over the place, and it's really interesting to hear what others have to say about the work, because it brings in a new perspective, which makes the work grow stronger. So in a sense, I almost feel like a project's done when I can't go someplace, when I'm no longer getting, it's almost like popcorn, you know. The pops are just less. It's kind of simmering down. Not sure that's really where you were going, but.
Thank you, thank you. Is there someone else in the audience? Yes, there, great.
How do unconditionally supportive environments, or the notion that everything you do is perfect, affect creativity?
Could you do that one more time, more
How does the
loudly?
notion that everything you do is perfect affect creativity?
Oh.
It leaves me in a space where I'm not doubting myself too soon. You're not self-editing. I think there's a point in the creative process where you need to just get it out. And I think if you are editing too soon or telling yourself that what it is you're doing isn't valid, you run the risk of not allowing for all these other possibilities to take place. Even in the examples that we were playing with today and seeing different people take on these word tasks and take it on very differently. If they stopped to look at each other to kind of question what they were doing versus what someone else was doing, we would have half the amount of possibilities.
Yeah, and this goes back to what this whole series is all about, definitions of words. Thank God I got a degree in philosophy. Because you say everything's perfect, right? Well, perfect doesn't necessarily mean finished. So for example, in product design, a lot of times you won't come up with anything interesting or useful unless you make a lot of stuff that doesn't work up front. And those are perfect at that stage, right? If you're too harsh and you're only trying to get something that's going to cross the finish line and go to customers on the first try, you're going to really limit what you can come up with. And so it's about accepting the kind of roughness of the process and letting stuff have some space to kind of come into its own life in terms of ideas.
Kyle, I heard when you say everything's perfect, I also hear you're saying to us, it is as it should be.
Right.
Which, as you point out, is to stop editing, stop censoring, just go.
Yeah, trust yourself.
Mm-hmm. I think we have time. Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Well, speaking about editing and censoring yourself, my question is actually about personal creativity versus creating for others. So does knowing about those who are going to be on your receiving end of your work affect your creativity? Do you often find yourself censoring or compromising instead of truly being creative?
Yeah, I mean, that's my whole job. My whole job is showing up and having a bunch of people tell me why what I made wasn't the right thing. And they're right, because they're the ones who are going to have to use it every day, not me, necessarily. But that being said, I think you can't get too far down that path either. It's a balance. Because a lot of times when you're trying to do something new, you got to break some rules, and a lot of times people don't know, and I don't even know, what the right rules to break are. And it's kind of one of those situations where you don't know what the right, wrong thing to do is until you see it. And so you also have to trust yourself, even when a lot of other people are saying like, oh, I don't know about that direction, that one. You kind of got to push for that. And so it's a balance of getting the input of others and checking your own ego, but also taking risks and pushing for stuff that you really believe in.
I feel like we kind of need to wrap this up, but before we do, and you all should know that you're the most stellar question answerer people ever. I mean that. This week. No, I mean no. But I feel as though it would be nice just to hear the thought, just a little bubble of your thoughts about what's sticking or what wants to live a little longer in terms of what we've talked about tonight. Just something that we can, you say it takes 3 times, and I love that you show each of those images 3 times. So for perhaps the second time, if not the third, what is something that you're going to stay with? Or that you want to introduce that didn't get said?
I have something I want to say. Because it was what Kyle was, it was in response to what Kyle was doing in the master class about a piece, or what did he call it? A phrase?
A phrase, yeah.
A phrase. And how the phrase looked different in different contexts. And I often think about the work as when you introduce a work to a different audience with a different understanding, you get different feedback, right, and a different understanding of the work. So the importance of your audience or the context of the discussion. Anyway, that sort of stuck for me in listening to what you were doing earlier.
Yeah, and I think this whole evening's actually been pretty educational even for me, because everything we talked about was all about, taking new perspectives on things and working with those. but something that kind of didn't occur to me coming into this is how important it is not only taking a new perspective you might have, but also making sure that you share it in a genuine and considerate way with other people, and how much more powerful like those realizations can be when you allow that to happen.
Yeah, I'm kind of like at an all of the above place, because I'm thinking about each presentation and how there's so many similarities in the necessary steps to approach this idea of creativity. Each time I'm presenting a work, I'm trying to test it out in different venues and or even in the same city, do it 2 times, like once at the beginning of a residency and then once at the end of a residency, and talk about it. And think about the shifts that happen in that time. And listening is all the more important to myself, to my collaborators, to the people that are coming to see the work and give me their thoughts and feedback. Trying to feel good about what it is I'm presenting, regardless of expectation or self-doubt, and just trying to put that thing forward and know that it is of value, and not letting someone else dictate what has value to me.
I'm going to think about separating yourself from the thing you're making. I think that's a super, super good reminder. I want to thank you all for an extraordinary evening. I want to thank you all for making it an extraordinary evening. And let's get out of the box. Okay.
Thanks, Vic.